Hi, everybody. So here we're going to talk about audience, purpose, and context. These are really important basics to keep in mind when you're going to convey any message to any group of people. This will help you think about who you're going to address, why you're addressing them, and what issues may come up when you are crafting your message. This will then help us kind of lead into different modes of rhetoric that may be used. But for now, we're going to look at audience, purpose, and context. So, audience. So your audience is who you're trying to reach, right? So you want to think about how much they already may know about your topic, what opinions they may hold about your topic, and maybe what they want, what their goals are, and how do you kind of address those in conjunction with what you're trying to get across, right? So when you're completing an assignment, say for a class, your audience should not just be your instructor, right? It shouldn't just be me, but it should be who else you think should hear this message? Who else are you trying to reach, right? So there's a couple of steps in this. So one, you want to identify them. You want to think about who is in this group that you want to communicate with, right? So this is really important because thinking about who they are will help you prepare for the language that you're going to use, the terms you should use in your message, and what you need to explain or what you don't need to explain, and what you're kind of hoping to specifically convey to this group. Okay, so think about who is in the group. Who are the people in this group? How do they relate to one another, and how might they relate to you and your message? And then two, you want to analyze your audience, right? So in analyzing your audience, after you've identified who they may be, you want to really think in depth about what they may know about the issue ahead of time. So how familiar are they with it, right? So this will assist you in knowing if you need to cover really basic information. Maybe if they're really unfamiliar with it, you're going to have to kind of explain a lot. Or if you're able to kind of skip ahead of that and really go in depth and assume that they know something already about the topic, right? So say, for example, if you're addressing, say you're an environmental educator or advocate, and you want to address an audience of people who are like professional fishers. You want to talk about safety for humpback whales in the Monterey Bay related to crab traps, right? So if you're talking to people who fish every day on the ocean, you can assume that they already know quite a bit about it, right? They know about the ocean and they know about how their traps function and work, right? And you can also assume that they have a lot of opinions about this already because it has to do with their livelihood and something that they really care about, okay? So with this group, you could really kind of skip ahead, skip the basics and explaining kind of ocean currents and whatnot, right? And you can really go in depth. Also, though, it's always important, even with this group, say, you want to conduct some really baseline research to think about them, to understand your audience more deeply, right? So if you follow the link that I have after this video, you want to kind of think about more nuanced like information and demographics about your group. You want to think about maybe their age, maybe their gender, their socioeconomic status, the location in which they live. So those are demographics. And then psychographics are really important because this is their beliefs, their lifestyles, their values. What do they care about? Now we want to think about purpose. Okay, so purpose is really important because you want to think about why are you communicating with this group? Why are you conveying a message to them? What do you want your specific audience to take away from the message that you're sending them, right? So this is really vital because it will help you work out your goals for either your written or recorded message. So do you want to teach them? Do you want to persuade them of something? Do you want to encourage them to take action? So if that's the case, you want to kind of think about how you're going to try and convince them to do what it is that you're hoping that they're going to do, right? So say if you want people to join a protest, right? You want to kind of motivate them to do that. So think about that in terms of the purpose of your communication. So you should take steps to help motivate them to take action and the action you want them to take. And then finally, context, right? So context is really important because this is kind of the situation, the environment in which your communication lives, in which it will be received, and how it's going to reach this audience, right? So what challenges or limitations exist in how people can access your message? What setting will the audience be in when they receive your communication? This is important too. So say, for example, if you're a college instructor, sorry, you can hear the birds. There's a blue jay in my backyard. Okay, so say if you're a college instructor who's teaching online, right, you should think about the situation in which you're recording your lesson plan in and what kind of like other sounds may intervene. But this is real life, right? You may also want to really think about your students, right? They're the most important group because they're who you want to communicate with. So you want to think about, will they have reliable access to the internet, right? Do they have a space that's kind of private or quiet enough so they can concentrate on the material? Will they have consistent or inconsistent internet? Will they have to share it with other people in their household? What kind of stress are they under? And how might that take in, how should that be like taken into account and thinking about their learning needs, maybe their strengths or abilities, maybe some learning differences or disabilities that they're dealing with. So how can you reach a broad range of people who are in your class? How can you make it meaningful and memorable to them? Okay. And how can you make it as accessible as possible to everyone, right? So now that we kind of have these down, audience, purpose, and context, we want to think about modes of persuasion. So I've included a link to a video that addresses ethos, pathos, and logos, right? So these are the methods of persuasion you can use to make people care about what you have to say, to make them trust you, and to let them know that they can rely on your evidence. So if you look at that link and then use that to complete your journal afterwards, then you'll be kind of prepared for completing your activities for this class and then for our next class. Okay, thanks.